Before I begin, I want to thank you. Not casually, not politely. I mean it in the deepest way an 89-year-old woman can mean anything. You could be anywhere right now. You could be half listening while folding laundry. You could be checking messages. You could be telling yourself you'll come back to this later. But you stopped. You pressed play. And that small decision to stay is already the opposite of what I did for most of my life. So I'm going to ask you for something bold. Stay with me. Not for background noise. Not while you multitask. Stay with me the way you would stay with someone who has very little time left to speak. Because what I am about to tell you is not motivational fluff. It is not productivity advice. It is not a clever life hack. It is a confession. My name is Margaret Ellis. I am 89 years old. And about 7 years ago, when I was 82, I realized something so simple it made me angry enough to cry. The realization was this. I had been waiting for permission to live. Waiting for the right time. Waiting for the chaos to calm. Waiting for the kids to grow. Waiting for the promotion. Waiting for the savings account to look safer. Waiting for the weight to drop. Waiting for Monday. Waiting for January. Waiting to feel ready. I believed there would be a moment, a clean, bright, orderly moment, when everything aligned and life finally said, "Okay, Margaret, now you may begin." That moment never came. And here is why I need you to stay until the end. If you truly understand what I am about to unfold for you, you will never look at your calendar the same way again. You will see hesitation for what it really is. You will recognize the lie while it is forming. And you may save yourself decades. If someone had shaken me at 25, or at 30, or at 45, or even at 60, I would have lived differently. Not dramatically, not recklessly, just intentionally. And that difference would have changed everything. In 1972, I started working as a junior coordinator at a distribution company outside of Cleveland. It was a modest operation then, paper invoices, rotary phones, carbon copies stacked in metal trays. I was 24, ambitious, efficient, reliable. By the early 1980s, I was running the entire regional office. I knew every vendor, every shipment route, every driver's personal story. I knew whose wife was sick, whose son was struggling in school, whose mother needed an early paycheck. I solved problems before they became visible. I answered calls at midnight. I skipped dinners to finalize contracts. And I wore exhaustion like proof of virtue. 6 days a week. 50 weeks a year. For 33 years. I told myself I was providing stability. I told myself sacrifice was love in action. I told myself the season was temporary. While I was building efficiency reports and optimizing freight schedules, my daughter Emily kept asking one simple question. "Mom, can we go to Niagara Falls this summer?" She asked at 9. She asked at 10. She asked at 11. She asked at 12. And every year I said, "Next summer, sweetheart. Things are just too busy right now." My husband Daniel would lean against the kitchen counter and say gently, "Maggie, the office will survive without you for 5 days." I truly believed it wouldn't. I believed I was essential, indispensable. If I stepped away, something would collapse. Do you know what happened when I retired in 2005? The company appointed a replacement in 11 days. 11. The trucks kept moving. The accounts balanced. The emails were answered. The building did not crumble. No one called me in panic. 33 years. Replaced in less than 2 weeks. That was the first crack in my illusion. But it wasn't the last. In 1989, I attended a small weekend art festival. There was a woman there sketching old barns and loch shores in charcoal. Her face was calm, not distracted, not rushed, just present. I remember standing there longer than necessary, watching the way her wrist moved across the page. Something inside me whispered, "I want that." That week, I bought a beautiful leather case filled with graphite pencils and thick drawing paper. I imagined myself waking early on Sundays, sitting by the window, learning how to draw light and shadow. I placed the case in my bedroom dresser. And I never opened it. Not that year. Not the next. Not for 26 years. Every Sunday, I told myself I was too tired. The laundry needed folding. The groceries needed planning. The emails needed answering. When work slows down, I thought. When things stabilize. Here is the lie no one warns you about. Things do not stabilize. Life does not clear space for you. It simply continues. In 2015, 10 years after retiring, I opened that drawer. The leather was stiff. The pencils were brittle. The paper yellowed at the edges. I held that unused sketchbook and understood something that felt like grief. It wasn't just paper that had aged. It was me. You think waiting costs you opportunity. It doesn't. It costs you capacity. Your hands steady today will not be steady forever. Your eyesight sharp now will blur. Your stamina abundant now will thin. Waiting is expensive in ways youth cannot calculate. Daniel developed chronic heart disease in his late 60s. Not dramatic, just gradual decline. We said we would travel when he felt stronger. We planned a road trip to Grand Canyon. We talked about walking through Central Park in autumn. We imagined a week sitting quietly by the ocean with no schedules. He never regained strength. Our final trip together was to the hospital. I returned home alone. And suddenly, all the next summers gathered in the room like ghosts. Tell me honestly, who are you postponing joy for? Whose recovery are you waiting on? Whose improvement are you betting your timeline against? Because no one sends an announcement that their time is shortening. They just get a little quieter, a little slower, a little more tired, and one day the chair across from you remains empty. If you are in your 20s or 30s watching this, I want you to lean in. At 35, I believed time was generous. At 50, I believed I had margin. At 65, I felt the first flicker of urgency. At 75, the urgency became silent panic. At 80, I stopped admitting it out loud. So let me give you the truths I wish someone had forced me to confront. First, your job will replace you. Not because you are unworthy, but because systems are designed to continue. If your workplace can recover from you in 2 weeks, it does not deserve 30 years of your Sundays. Second, the people who love you will eventually stop asking. Emily stopped mentioning Niagara Falls. My son stopped inviting me to his Saturday games. Daniel stopped suggesting trips. Not because they stopped loving me, but because not yet eventually sounds like rejection. People protect themselves. They lower expectations. They adjust. And sometimes they adjust without you. Third, rest is not a reward for productivity. It is maintenance for a living organism. I did not take a genuine vacation until I was 66. When I sat still for the first time without tasks, I felt anxious, almost guilty. I had trained myself to equate worth with motion. Fourth, you are allowed to want unreasonable things. To start over at 48. To learn an instrument at 55. To write badly. To paint clumsily. To explore something that produces no income and no applause. The quiet desires you silence today become the loud regrets that echo later. And here is the core truth underneath all four. Waiting is not patience. It is fear dressed in responsibility. Fear of failure. Fear of embarrassment. Fear of discovering you are ordinary. Fear that the dream will not feel as magical once attempted. So you delay. And delay feels safe. Until the cost becomes visible. 3 years ago, at 86, my granddaughter placed a new sketchbook on the kitchen table and said, "Grandma, just draw one line. Just one line." My hands tremble now. My lines wobble. The trees I draw lean as if wind is permanent. But every morning, I sit by the window with coffee and I draw something, a cup, a leaf, the way sunlight hits the floor. And I feel something I could have felt at 35. Not perfection. Not mastery. Just aliveness. It did not need to take 40 years. It could have taken 40 minutes. And that realization is what hurts most. So now I am going to ask you something important. What is the thing you keep postponing? Is it the business idea? The apology? The creative project? The call to your parents? The health decision? The application? The trip? Write it in the comments. Not because I need engagement, but because when you name a delay, it becomes harder to justify. Say it publicly. Commit to one imperfect step this week. Not next month. Not next year. Not when everything settles. This week. Because foolish and alive will always be better than dignified and regretful. You do not need my permission. But at 89, after a lifetime of waiting, I am giving it to you anyway. Now tell me,